Namaste and greetings. I, Sana Ansari, researcher at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, Prabhav एवं नीति अनुसंधान संस्थान, New Delhi. Extend my warmest welcome to you all to IMPRI Web Policy Learning. Today marks day 8 of Young Women Leaders in Public Policy Fellowship, Cohort 4, theme Women Leadership in Globalized World. A 3-month online immersive introductory Leadership Certificate Training Fellowship Program. This initiative by IMPRI Gender Impact Studies Center is designed to nurture young women leaders in the field of public policy, governance, and social transformation by equipping them with essential knowledge, practical skills, and dedicated mentorship to drive meaningful and impactful change. The program is chaired by Professor Vibhuti Patel ji, visiting distinguished professor at IMPRI. The conveners of this fellowship are Dr. Simi Mehta ji and Dr. Arjun Kumar ji. Before we begin, I would like to state the housekeeping rule. Please join the meeting on time. There will be Q&A session after each presentation. Share your question in the Q&A box and not in the chat box. The question must not be posted as an anonymous attendee. Ensure that the questions are precise. Refrain from making general comments with the question to save time. To begin today's session, it is my privilege to invite our chair, Professor Vibhuti Patel ji, to deliver the opening remarks. We warmly welcome you, ma'am, and over to you.
Yeah. Thank you, Sana, for the beginning welcome address. And today, we had very interesting presentations last time, 3 presentations. And now we are going to have 6 presentations. And all of you, I think, have really grasped the lessons from the resource person session. So I think let us begin the presentation today.
Thank you so much, ma'am. With this, I would like to move towards the presentation by our fellows. The first presenter we have Isha Agarwal ji.
Yes, am I audible?
Yes, you're on.
Yeah. So I would be joining from my phone also so that my camera is visible as well as my screen. Can you give me a minute, please?
Sure, take your time.
I have a request. Can you please send that acceptance for the join as panelist again? So that
Yes. I've just sent. Can you check now? Please accept.
in my phone, I'm not getting that option of joining as panelist.
Yeah, I'm sending to your phone only, the one that is in the attendee. It's saying that you're declining.
Yeah, I'm not getting the option to accept it. I'm getting the accept you are promoted to panelist, but I'm not able to accept. There is no option coming to accept or decline.
Okay. Does your laptop camera not work?
No, my webcam is not working, and when I show when I share my screen, my camera automatically turns off.
Okay.
Yes.
In that case, I think maybe you can proceed without the video then.
If it works, then okay. Let me share my screen then.
The screen was visible.
Are you able to screen share? Yeah.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah. My microphone was muted and I didn't realize it.
Yeah, please start.
Good afternoon, everyone. The chairperson, Dr. Vibhuti ma'am, and the esteemed member of IMPRI panelist. So my research topic is three generation, three workforce identities, attitude, motivation, and policy shaping women's workforce participation in India. I am taking the account of three generations Gen X, Gen Y, which is also known as millennials, and Gen Z. Hi everyone, I am Isha Agarwal. I am an undergraduate student and a research fellow at IMPRI. So we can see that from the World Bank report, only 32% of women are engaged in India's labor workforce. And from the current PLFS report, only 45% of the rural female are employed, which is very low among every single country there. And the gap between policy and how it have been implemented, there is a very evident gap, and there are structural explanation also because of those gap. Let me give you one example of maternity leave that have been implemented. The policy have a great intention, and but the implementation lies low. Implementation is still very low, and employers do not want to hire women because of the maternity leave, and we can see now that employers fear to bear the all the cost and everything of the maternity leave policy that the government have intended, because all the burden is fallen over the employer. So, though the intent is very novel, the implementation and the lived experience are very different from that. And every policy creates a generational identity trap. For example, when this policy was implemented for Gen X, for them it was a compliance. They felt grateful that, okay, we are getting a leave. It is a grateful thing for them, and they accepted it happily rather than feeling that it is a right to them. For Gen Y, it was a compromise. They needed more time. They needed their partner support also, but they had to compromise with the maternity leave itself. Whereas when we see the Generation Z, this is not the case. They backlash this policy. They say no and ask for proper implementation and proper policy, like proper proper system to work, which we also known as, which I have given the term resistance here. the methodology that I have
Your
used.
slides are not moving, huh? We are stuck in the first one only.
Oh, okay, ma'am. I didn't realize it. Is my slide visible?
Yeah, now we are on number 2. Yes.
Yeah. So I explained the labor
Yeah.
workforce paradox. Um, let me go to the methodology section.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Is my slide visible?
Yes.
Yeah. So the methodology, I have used a generational analysis. Here it is written 15 narrative. I have reduced it to the 3 narrative interviews due to the time constraint. And taking the interviews and like reporting the lived experience, and the 3 theories that I have used mainly here is the role congruity theory, which states that women face double bind. Uh, First of all, it is very hard for the woman to go to the work leadership roles, and if she does, she faces backlash, and people don't accept her or say she's very bossy, she's very arrogant, or call her very hard woman. The second theory that I am using is the identity economics, which states that every individual have their identity and they want to portray their identity with the work they do. For example, if someone is very strong and hard-willed, they try to take the job that put the personality that suits them. For example, politics, police, IPS officer, IES officer. These all require a high-willed personality and strong will. Whereas a person who sees themselves as nurturing and caring, they would like to set up in that field, like teacher in mental health places like that. And the third theory that I have specifically for the Gen Z is the reactance theory, which states that if someone feel that their identity or existence or their autonomy is being threatened, they try to withdraw and not engage in that place, which we can see with the quiet quitting trend and the lazy job trend the Gen Z is following. The next slide is the findings. I am yet to find, but these are my, what do we say, hypothesis? Yeah, hypothesis that Gen X have the compliance nature with themselves. They work for the financial necessity and because they needed that, whereas Gen Y had to compromise. They were very high, they are very high-willed, very uh, ambitious, but due to the policy and everything, they have to be sometime compromised with the workforce, like not getting the promotion, getting the favoritism, uh, experiencing discrimination, whereas Gen Z have been has got a resistance nature in themselves, where posh training and everything are being implemented, and they are trying, like if they see someone is commenting and they do not like it, they call it out and say no, this is not how it works. If they feel that casual sexism comment is being passed on, they call it out and stop normalizing these all things. This is what my hypothesis is, and somewhere it is getting little from the lived experience and the interviews, I am getting the same results. The next slide is about why this legislative is failing, and what are the policy recommendation that I have. Why the legislation is failing. First, I have the identity cost, which is little related to the theoretical framework that I am using of identity economics, which states that women are not working as they see themselves to be. They are forced to be they are forced to take the caregiving job where they don't want to, or they are forced to work outside the home or the job they do not want to do. And here their identity is in crisis, and they do not portray themselves like they have to fake themselves. They are not themselves. The third thing is role penalty. Again, the discrimination the women face against men and everything. They are said that there is no favoritism or discrimination happening, but we can clearly see that there is some discrimination against wages, salaries, opportunities, everything. For the opportunities, I would like to give one example. Like when election is going on and field work is there, the fieldwork requires any time and there is no time limit, and it requires the night time also for the promotion or the election thing, and the women's are not preferred because they think that they won't be coming or they won't be joining, and the men are they are themselves being, like, what do we say, out of that role, and it all the burden goes on the men. So this is. And the women's. Hello, is someone saying something? Okay. And the third thing is the reactance gap, which the Gen Z's disengagement is proving it, where they are not liking the rigidity, micromanagement of the employers and everything. The 5 policy recommendation, I am not limited to 5, but I in the presentation I included only 5 policies, which are the flexible working environment, part-time options, hybrid models, and we should look into is the work done rather than you looking into is the employer working 70 hours per week or not. This is what the attitude needs to change. The second thing is the posh implementation. It is a very great policy, but the implementation lies behind. And sometimes we can see colleagues making fun of this policy, that they see women as weak people or something, like they are using it against men. But there should be a proper posh implementation. The second thing is the casual misogyny and sexist comment that is normalized in our working environment should end, and the identity affirmative mentorship should be given not only to men, to women also. And also the narrative policy, where in the implementation sector women is also hired and increased. They are they the like tokenism that we talked about in one of our session. There is no tokenism that females are there only for representation. Females are working there, and there are equal representation in every single sector. And third thing is, this is not limited to females here, because gig economy and gig workers themselves are facing a lot of issues and a lot of problems. But women specifically, for the gig workers, the workers should be provided an maternity and pension coverage when it comes to gig working environment. So my presentation ends here, and the creativity part, I have written a poem. I would like to present it. It is one of the most exciting part of the whole research paper. For the last week, I was really excited to share my poem, which is inspired from my mother. Let me go to that image. Yes. So here is the image. Helping us to take flight. She folded her wings because they told her to, but she remembered the shape of open air. Her daughter learned to bend, not break, carry the weight, and called it love. The granddaughter opens her wings anyway. She is not angry. She is done asking. And now the older hands hold the string, helping us take flight by fighting the fight, so the air feels filled with fearless kites. From Ishagama. Yeah, that's it from my side. If anybody have any questions and anything, I'm open to that.
Ma'am, you're muted. Ma'am, you're muted.
Vibhuti,
Ma'am, you are muted.
Oh, Ishaji, have you done your interviews?
ma'am, I have done 6 interviews. 3 interviews are left from each.
Okay.
People. Yeah.
Yeah, so that you will be weaving into this thing, no, in your primary
And
data. Yeah,
yes,
in the essay. Yeah,
yes,
and
ma'am.
another thing, please avoid using word female. Generally, it is a derogatory term when it comes to social sciences. First of all, female we use only in a biological sense. So when you, in a social science writings, you use women or girls, man or boys, no? So
Ma'am.
even just check in the text, it should be either, if the
Women.
person is below 18, use girl, and above 18, it is women. So that is one thing.
Okay,
Now, other very important issue that wherever there is a victim, you need to spell it out that so many ideologies uh, which are on the foundation of victim blaming. So I think even at the workplace, no, that women are not paying enough attention, or they have a nurturer quality, they can't take hard decision. This the main thing in the argument has to be that give them level playing field. If you have an opportunity, you would exercise your power. But when you are in a powerless position, when you are in the bottom of the hierarchy, what can you do except for asking for uh, whatever demands you have? No. So main
Yes.
thing is that equal opportunity, equal treatment, and equal reward. These
Yes,
three main theme around which our argument should be revolving. No.
yes, ma'am.
Whether it is my mother's generation or my generation or Gen. And plus you need to define when you are using this Gen X and Gen Z, you in your in the beginning, in your introduction only, you will have to I have written in the chat box that this is the definition of Gen X and Gen Z. No? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. You can. Yes. Yeah. Fine. And those theories which are there, they're like you have to provide the historical context also. There's three ideological, this thing, identity related. Another one is that opportunity related. So you will have to see what are the roots of those theories. No? So that you will have to explain in one paragraph.
Okay, ma'am.
And why? Because there are so many theories. There are role conflict theory by the sociologist, or where there are neoclassical theory in economics, or there are psychological theories about inability to take hard decisions, no, by women.
ma'am.
Why you chose this? That rationale you will have to provide. That why you have chosen this, these three indicators, or these three theories, no.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's full. Yeah, very good. And references and cross-referencing, that also you need to be particular about.
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am. Yes. Is there, ma'am, any critical side you want to?
No, critical may only this one, that victim blaming should not be there in any, whether you're talking of Gen X or Gen Z or this.
Yes, ma'am.
So, but it is the circumstances, the structures and systems which
Yes,
are, as your title says, no, it's attitude and policies and this thing which are creating this. And these attitudes are also not subjectively defined. No, they are
yes,
defined by the socialization.
yes, ma'am.
So the focus has to be on the constraints created by the larger ecosystem. No?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, fine.
Thank you so
Otherwise,
much.
we will end up just saying all the super women they talk about, no, that if I could become prime minister, why can't you? And they're blaming rest of the women. So
Yes,
that kind of argument should not be there. It should be, the focus should be on systems and structures of patriarchy, which creates hurdles and limitations for women to come up. Some are able to transcend them if there is a supportive environment, as your poem says, no, how the nanny and supported and mother, they are supporting Gen Z,
yes,
and
ma'am.
then you are able to fly. So I think the same philosophy applies in the
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, very good. Congratulations. Very good one.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Isha ji, for your presentation and ma'am for your comments. Next, we have Ranjana Soni ji as a presenter.
Yeah, I'll just share the presentation.
Sure.
In the meanwhile, for the upcoming presenters, we're sending a request to join as a panelist. You're requested to kindly accept it so you can have access to the share button and audio and video.
Yeah, is it like visible now?
Yes.
It's not
screen is
the
open.
title page is not visible. We are on page number 10.
Yeah, now it's visible.
Slide number 10.
Now the
Now it
first
is fine.
It's in the presentation mode right now. That's okay.
Yes.
Yeah, hello. Good afternoon, ma'am, and good afternoon, all the fellow participants from and the organizers from IMPRI. My name is Dr. Anjana, and I will be presenting on the topic enhancing gender responsive urban mobility through understanding women-centric last mile connectivity problems in Gurgaon.
Yeah.
Oh, 1 second. Yeah. Okay. So this does not go. Yeah. So we all know that rapid urbanization has its own benefits, and but at the same time, it's found to increase the congestion, pollution, and also lead to mobility challenges. This is what I've done in my thesis also. However, I'll be focusing more on what is the impact of metro transport systems. So metro systems, they support sustainable transport, but however, they lead to many problems like first mile and last mile connectivity, and which remains a critical issue. And this is very true for women, especially because they face barriers due to safety, affordability, and accessibility concerns. Now, okay, so how do I take this?
We are able to see it. It is in slide.
Okay. Okay, so some of the literature review which substantiates my study is like there have been many studies on women safety. For example, there was a study by Roy who said about understanding the barriers affecting women's mobility in the first mile and last mile connectivity stretches. And the key finding was that women face unsafe walking routes, poor feed access, harassment, affordability, weak public transport integration in the first mile and last mile. There was another study about first mile and last mile, and it showed that weak feeder systems, it includes exclusion. They have higher travel cost, and which is very prominent in Gurgaon, and it reduces the transit efficiency for daily commuters. Another study by SafetyFin, which is very active in Gurgaon. So they have this app called She Rises, And their study showed that metro stations, which surrounding lighting, pedestrian access, and unsafe waiting zones, are the weakest links that affect the women's safety. And they specifically emphasize on lighting, and they've done it via using their own app and then safety audits, field mapping. There's another study which talks about planning and designing of transport systems to ensure safety travel for women, and by Geetam Tiwari, and which says that women's safety must be central to transport planning and public space design. And so there are many more studies which are not included because of the restriction of time, and which says I've summarized the gaps, and which says that there are limited studies on women-centric first mile and last mile connectivity issues, and especially if you talk about Gurgaon, which is my study area. Safety, affordability, and sustainability are the mostly studied. They are studied separately. Very limited research has been done on women-only shared EV feeder services, and there is also a career impact on due to these unsafe commuting problems for women, and this area is kind of underexplored. So there are people who are doing work on this, and as far as India is concerned and outside also, and there have been many initiatives which have been introduced by government, like She Rides, Pinky Toes, Women Only, Bike Taxis, Pink Saheli, many initiatives. And even abroad, if you look, there are pink taxis, pink buses, Uber Women Preference, eWAMI, Women in Transport Safety Frameworks. And they each of them have key features, and they focus mainly on women commuters. However, the main gap which has been found as far as these initiatives are concerned is that they improve safety inside the public transport, but they fail to provide a safe, affordable, reliable, and women-centric first and last mile connectivity solution between metro stations and home and work destinations. That is a main place of concern because uh, mostly it is done in the hours of the day. So when men come back from work and they have to travel from metro station to home and in the late hours, and that is a time when the major happenings happen. So overall, the research objectives are that the study of women's first and last mile travel patterns about Millennium City Center metro station. This is the main objective. I'm focusing on Gurgaon. I would like to identify the barriers like safety, cost, the waiting time, and poor infrastructure. And I would also want to understand their impact on the job choices, the work hours, and daily mobility. Further, I would like to understand their lived experiences via content analysis, which was discussed in the earlier presentations. And in the last, I would like to propose a women-only shared EV shuttle as a safer mobility and sustainable solution. So this would be done. In fact, the questionnaire has already been prepared, and some of the features of the questionnaire are that I've collected data on profile building, which includes age, income, occupation, travel purpose, the travel details, which includes the mode, the distance, the time, the cost, and the waiting time of women commuters. What are the ratings they would give to safety, affordability, and infrastructure, and what is the impact on career? And qualitative inputs, especially for the content analysis, are some of the features attributes included are what are the unsafe spots, what are the coping strategies, and what is that one major fix they would like to propose. So as I've already discussed, this is a mixed method approach, and my field survey is Millennium City Center metro station in Gurgaon, and I have done some of my word to mouth, like it's not word to mouth survey. And however, my final survey would have around 150 commuters. The analysis would be done using descriptive analysis, and I also propose to build a regression model. And maybe if the data allows, the samplings allows in statistical modeling, and of course the content analysis for whatever the qualitative responses I get. So the expected outcomes are identify what are the key barriers in women's last mile travel. I would I would like to map the unsafe zones near these metro stations. I would also understand how the women's mobility behavior model would substantiate my findings. Then access women only shared EV shuttle feasibility, which is what I want to propose. And of course, recommend safer and sustainable mobility solutions. So in the last, I can only say that yes, safe last mile access is very critical for women commuters. Better feeder systems can definitely improve the metro ridership. Women-centric planning supports inclusive urban mobility, and the present study would help to build a gender-responsive transport policy. So these are some of my selected references. Thank you. I would be open to hear.
Dr. Rinna, I think you also need to take care of the theoretical debate about public transport as a public good or a market-oriented venture, no? So your focus is more on the non-state actors, whether it's a taxi or buses or this. But I think public transport is a very important responsibility of the local self-government bodies, and especially after 2013 Nirbhaya tragedy, the focus at a subnational level, so many state governments have come up with various schemes. So I think that too you need to take into consideration that some of the southern states have free transport, Karnataka and I think Tamil Nadu. And in rural areas of Andhra Pradesh, after that incident of a woman insurance agent, no, who was gang raped and her body was thrown on national highway. Andhra Pradesh government has also taken up many safety measures in which if a woman asks the conductor to stop the bus wherever she wants to get down, even if it is not a bus station, the conductor has to do it, no? So that she doesn't have to walk alone on the road. So I think public transport should also be your focus. And several state governments have come up about they have done safety audit is now a big thing now. So that has happened, and UN Women on various state transport boards of the of Indian states and union territories. I think their measures also should be included in your review of literature. Otherwise, it looks that it's only private initiative, no?
Yeah.
And that whole debate about whether it's education or health or water or mobility, there is a big debate among economists and policymakers whether it is a public good. If it is a public good, state has to take care of it, and taxpayers' money should be used for this as a priority, and it can't be left to the market. No? So that debate you need to bring into focus. It's globally also it's happening because most of the European, Scandinavian countries, they have a sliding scales of transport cost, no? For elderly people in the afternoon, 1/3 is charged in England, or in so many East European countries, there is no the senior citizens, person with disabilities, they are not they don't levy any charges from the commuters. Then the heavily subsidized transport they have for the public transport. There may be Ola, Uber may be expensive, but the public transport is heavily subsidized by the state. So I think that makes a strong argument that the state has to provide the safe mobility. That's the only way we can enhance the work participation of women, and the talent that we have, human resource, can be optimally utilized for strengthening the economy.
Okay, ma'am, you're suggesting that I should include public transport service attributes. That's what you're suggesting, right?
Services and the philosophy behind that it is a public good. Mobility of the population, mobility of the workforce, it's a public good. It can't be left to the market, no? So
So the current focus for me is only to focus on the last mile for women commuters.
Yeah.
But then, like, I'm just focusing on one metro station in Gurgaon.
Yeah, so that is your personal primary data. I'm
Yeah.
talking about the review of literature, that you know that this is the universe within which you are locating your study on Gurgaon.
Okay, okay. Because yeah, I have not included all my papers actually because there was a time
No, but you
restriction.
can, within review of literature also you can have a subtitles, no?
Yeah,
That
yeah,
the state and initiatives of state and non-state actors, market versus public, the argument of how do we see mobility? Is mobility an individual responsibility or the responsibility of the state, so that their talent and their qualifications can be utilized?
Okay,
optimally.
okay.
Yeah.
So you're mentioning that in the literature, I need to include the,
Yes.
yeah, that actually, yeah, I've just like given only 4 papers.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's a very big list, and I
Yeah.
thought time restriction I didn't include. But otherwise, my focus, that is on the last mile for women.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
In
Right.
fact, most of the time, the mishaps happen only because of absence of last mile connectivity.
Yeah, yeah,
And
especially
even
during,
our monorail in Mumbai, because
yeah.
it doesn't have last mile connectivity, it's a
Mm,
less than 10% utilization.
mm,
Even such a waste of crores of rupees, because
yeah,
the both the starting and ending point and all the stations there is no connectivity. So
oh,
it is totally unutilized, and it's a wasteful investment of resources.
yeah. I mean, especially, and then it has a career impact also. Many women
Yes.
also, they leave early so that they don't have to, cross that stretch.
We
So,
saw during BEST strike, no, when they were going to wetlist the BEST, and there was a big agitation, the BEST was closed. So there was a 25% dropout of girls from school, can you imagine? In the 1 month, because they could not have walked for 6-7 kilometers, which is the schools are away from home. So you can the impact of not having safe mobility and subsidized transport is so visible. There was so much of hue and cry, and finally they started, and there are all the planners, policymakers, engineers, commuters association, all of them got united, and they did not allow privatization of BEST in Mumbai.
yeah. 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 Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, very good, very comprehensive work. You can go up to 5,000, don't worry. Your essay can be long also. That's not a problem, because it's so
Yeah, I just
comprehensive.
actually need to
Studies.
now focus on this data collection and then analysis.
Yeah.
And then by 26, we need to submit, I think, the
Yeah.
chapter.
Yeah. But whatever you have, don't prune it, or don't reduce the thing, because if you have a comprehensive review of literature, it will be useful, because this is a under-researched area. No, mobility is there are hard, not much work is done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot,
It will
ma'am.
add to new knowledge. Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you.
definitely. This is one of the areas which I wanted to do for a long time,
No, it's very important.
especially for women. And then I see in Gurgaon, many women face this problem.
Yeah.
Many
We
of
had a conference, the National Conference of Indian Association for Women's Studies. It was so difficult after 5 o'clock. Just you don't get anything except for those electric rickshaws. No, they also like you rarely spot them. So
Yeah.
and the metro stations were so much away from rest of the places. So
Yeah.
it gets very scary.
It's scary actually. That's the
Scary.
word.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Let's
I
see
think,
now.
and also it's not properly lit. No? So many areas are not properly lit up. So when the big roads and
Yeah, let's see now. Thanks, ma'am. Thank you for your feedback.
Thank you so much,
knowledge.
Ranjana ji, and thank you, ma'am, for your feedback. Next, we have Vandana ji.
Yeah. Vandana ji,
Vandana ji, can you hear us?
Bansiwal, yeah.
Akshara ji, would you like to go next?
Sure, Sanaji, I'll present.
Sure. Please go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so is my screen visible?
Yes, it's visible.
Okay, so a very warm good evening to respected Vibhuti ma'am and my dear panelists.
Yes.
So the topic that I have taken is sexual and reproductive rights of women and girls with disabilities in India. So if you see reproductive rights form an integral part of basic human rights and bodily autonomy. So it is part of the basic human rights and it cannot be alienated. And the rights includes rights related to sexuality, reproductive freedom, contraception, and maternal care. And coming to sexuality, it involves the ways in which the individuals experience as well as express themselves sexually. And this includes various aspects such as biological, physiological, and so on, various other behaviors. But women with disabilities, as they're labeled and treated as asexual and incapable of motherhood. So, this is a very major issue that women with disabilities face, where they're treated as either asexual, that is, people without any sexual feelings, or as hypersexual, that is, in the other end of the spectrum. It is both extremes. There is no midway, or they're treated as incapable of motherhood. That is, they're treated as unfit to be mothers. As a result of which, in cases involving pregnancies of women with disabilities, the decision making power is substituted to the families. That is, they're not allowed to take independent decisions. So, girls and women with disabilities face denial when it comes to their rights and are subjected to forced sterilization. That is, in a lot of cases, especially after hitting puberty, so that they don't get their menstrual periods, they are forced into sterilization. And also at a later point of time, so that they don't get pregnant, they have to undergo forceful sterilization, which is a major human rights violation. And women with intellectual and psychosocial disabilities, they are often they face infantilization by caregivers and family members, because the caregivers and family members have a feeling that since they have intellectual disabilities, they are infantilized. That is, they feel that they're incapable of making decisions because they're having intellectual disability.
Yeah.
And even if they end up having children by continuing their pregnancy, there's a high chance that they lose the custody of that child. And social stigma and discrimination, these factors lead to the restriction in their sexual and reproductive independence. Even women who belong to the economically independent background, that is, women with disabilities who are from economically independent families, they too face barriers when it comes to exercising their reproductive rights. So now coming to the research.
It is on a working mode. Can you make it slideshow mode? Because even your font size is very small.
Sure, ma'am, I'll do that. Is it visible now, ma'am?
Yes, now it's visible. Yeah. Yeah.
So coming to the research questions. So these are the research questions that I identified. Do women and girls with disabilities in India enjoy their reproductive rights equally? That's the first question. Whether they're enjoying it equally or not, sadly, no. What are the legal safeguards that exist in the international and national level? That is, internationally, we have the UNCRPD, or the United Nations Convention on Rights of Persons with Disabilities. And in the national level, we have the RPWD Act, that is the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act. Followed by that, how do societal attitudes affect the reproductive independence of women with disabilities? Then, are the existing laws, that is the RPWD Act, sufficient to ensure informed consent or communicated consent and bodily autonomy or bodily independence? Followed by that, what role do caregivers and medical professionals, that is the medical team, play when it comes to making decisions on behalf of women with disabilities? And my last question, how can access to reproductive health care be made inclusive as well as non-discriminatory in nature? So these are the 6 research questions that I have identified. Now coming to the review of literature part. So the literature highlights that reproductive rights as a subset of human rights. So this is what was found out. Unfortunately, it is not being part of human right, treated as part of human rights, but as a subset of human rights. And the studies emphasize that there is an intersection of disability as well as gender discrimination. That is, there is an intersection, and somewhere in between, this particular right is coming between disability and gender discrimination. And the various research studies points out the prevalence of number one, coercive sterilization or forced sterilization, where women and girls with disabilities are forced to go for a sterilization in order to avoid any form of pregnancy. And the second thing that was noticed was denial of reproductive choices. They're not given the choice, the option of making a decision for themselves, including women who are with disabilities who are capable of making independent decisions. Because of their disability, they're denied reproductive choices. And the international frameworks, like the Disability Convention, they stress upon autonomy and informed consent. That is seen, but unfortunately, in a lot of cases, it is not being followed. And coming to the Indian literature and articles that I referred, it discusses the gaps when it comes to implementation in spite of having the legal safeguards or the respective laws. And also the judicial decisions given by the Supreme Court as well as the various state high courts reflect evolving recognition of reproductive autonomy. And finally, existing literature calls for empowerment, that is empowering women with disabilities, their caregivers, as well as the medical professionals, and also building awareness among them. So this is the review of literature part. Now coming to the methodology. The methodology that I have adopted is doctrinal. The doctrinal research is adopted. Then analysis of disability, international disability and human rights framework that will be analyzed. Followed by that, the Indian legal provisions under the Indian Act, that is the RPWD Act, relating to reproductive rights and disabilities. Study of judicial pronouncements on when it comes to reproductive independence. And the secondary sources are journal articles written by various scholars, the various disability reports that are published, and the judicial decisions given by the Supreme Court as well as the state high courts and relevant foreign judgments as well. The focus will be on legal and rights-based approach rather than empirical data. So the last part, that is the focus will be on legal and rights-based approach, because earlier the law that we had, that is the PWD Act of 1995 or the Persons with Disabilities Equal Opportunity Act of 95, it was a medical-based approach or a medical model. But the current act that we have, that is the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act, it's the rights-based approach, where persons with disabilities, to be more specific in my presentation, women with disabilities are seen as subjects who are capable of having as well as exercising their rights. So therefore, my last methodology will be to focus on legal and rights-based approach rather than pure empirical data. Now coming to the barriers women with disabilities face, these are the barriers starting from discrimination which they face throughout their life as they're coming within the gendered category. That is, they're women with disabilities. That is the first thing. Followed by that, health inequities. So there's a difference between equality and equity, where health is equal for everyone. But when it comes to equity, there is a huge lacuna because hospitals are not accessible or disability friendly for both women with physical as well as intellectual disabilities. Like when it comes to inaccessibility, the shape of the bed in the gynae wards, it does not support women who have physical disabilities. Like say a woman with spina bifida, she might find it difficult to lie down on a bed for her gynec examination. So this is where the health inequity lacks, because that bed is suitable for a woman who is non-disabled, who doesn't have a disability, or a woman with an intellectual disability, sans physical disability. But when it comes to physical disability, clear inequity is seen. So this is one of the example, and many more examples that are there, which I'm not citing because of the time constraint. Followed by that, lack of accessibility to right of sexuality and reproductive health. Followed by that, lack of health policies specifically for women with disabilities. India doesn't have a health policy as such for women with disabilities. Then absence of sex education services, where many women with disabilities, they're not given sex education. And also it takes a lot of work because it has to be tailor-made depending upon their need and the type of disabilities in order to make them understand. So that is not being done. There is absence of sex education services. Followed by that, sexual violence. Women with disabilities, they're extremely vulnerable in comparison with their non-disabled counterparts because many of them end up becoming victims of various sexual crimes. Then comes lack of privacy. Privacy is not respected for them, especially for women with sensory issues. If they go for gynec examination, they are made to sit with their non-disabled counterparts, and there is a high chance that they feel uncomfortable because people judge them when they see a woman with a disability. Other patients, the medical staff, they judge them. Like for them, it's a very alien concept. A woman with a disability expecting a baby, so their privacy is being violated. Followed by that, lack of independence and self-determination. So these were the barriers that I have identified. Then coming to the international convention, that is the UNCRPD. So it was the first international treaty specifically designed for rights of persons with disabilities, which was adopted in 2006, and India had ratified the same in 2008. So Article 6, Article 16 and 25 of UNCRPD are women-centric articles. Article 6 covers with respect to women and girls with disabilities. Article 16 deals with freedom from all forms of exploitation, violence, and abuse. Violence here includes gender-based violence, such as sexual assault. Followed by that, Article 25, that is healthcare, which includes the right to sexual and reproductive health. Health under Article 25 also includes right to sexual and reproductive health. So these are the three provisions which are women-centric under the UNCRPD 2006. Now coming to the legal framework in India, Article 21 of the Constitution that forms part of the legal framework which guarantees right to life and personal liberty. And right to life and personal liberty also includes reproductive independence. And then coming to the 1971 Act, that is the MTP Act, or the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act. So the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act allows for termination of pregnancy, but in the case of mental illness. So this is another big lacuna that was seen. Earlier, mental illness was used interchangeably for intellectual disability. It's a totally different meaning. Both the definitions as well as the meaning of mental illness and mental disability was different. That is, intellectual disability was different. But earlier, it was used interchangeably. And this led to the confusion with respect to the difference between both the terminologies. Followed by that, under sections 3, subsection 4, clause A and clause B of the Act, consent of the guardian is required if the girl is below 18 or mentally ill. So since the word mentally ill was given, this word was used interchangeably even for women with intellectual disabilities. So the legal interpretation in this provision included cases where a woman couldn't provide free and informed consent. And it substituted the decision-making approach. That is, guardian's consent was mandatory here. So this terminology, mental illness, use of the word mental illness, caused a lot of confusion here under the 1971 Act. Then in 2016, in order to draft a model which was par with the UNCRPD, that is the United Nations Convention on Rights of Persons with Disabilities, India had repealed or struck down the PWD Act, or the Persons with Disabilities Act of 1995, and drafted the 2016 Act, that is the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act. So it is the India's first right-based legislations for persons with disabilities. And Section 10 of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act mandates that no person with a disability shall be subjected to any medical procedure. So Section 10 of the Act, it mandates that no person with disability shall. So in every legal provision, wherever the word shall comes, it is mandatory. It has to be mandatorily followed. So as per Section 10 of the Act, no person with disability shall be subjected to any medical procedure which can lead to infertility without free and informed consent. And this includes medical termination of pregnancy, because MTP can cause complications. That is the reason why consent is obtained. So as per Section 10, no medical procedure should be performed without taking free and informed consent. We have the law to protect their rights. Followed by that, Section 13, subsection 2 speaks of legal capacity. And this ensures that persons with disabilities enjoy legal capacity on an equal basis with their non-disabled counterparts. And this includes right to make their own reproductive choices. And the Act guarantees to information on reproductive rights and family planning. So reproductive rights and family planning too has been included in the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act, which was not there in the previous Act. However, there is a huge lacuna here too, because the lacuna says there is no mention of right to sexuality. Though everything has been covered here under Section 10, that consent has to be taken before a medical procedure is performed. Legal capacity has been guaranteed under Section 13, subsection 2, and also reproductive rights and family planning has been included in the Act, but nowhere it is mentioned about right to sexuality. That is nowhere mentioned in the Act. That is the big lacuna that I have identified. Then in 2021, an amendment was done to the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act. So earlier, the gestational limit of termination of pregnancy was up to 20 weeks. However, after this amendment, it has increased to 24 weeks in cases involving termination of pregnancy of survivors of sexual abuse or sexual assault. And this is a frequent concern when it comes to women with severe intellectual disabilities. It's a major concern because women with intellectual disabilities are more vulnerable, even more vulnerable in comparison with women with physical disabilities, because a lot of cases were reported where women with intellectual disabilities in shelter homes were sexually assaulted and they were not even aware of it. For example, as it happened in the case of Sucheta Srivastava versus Chandigarh administration, which I'll be dealing with in the next slide. So the gestational period has increased after the 2021 amendment to the 1971 Act to 24 weeks. Then coming to the findings. So there is a significant gap between legal provisions and ground reality. That is the first finding. Legal provisions, though we have sufficient laws, sufficient safeguards under the Constitution, then the 2021 amendment that was done to the MTP Act, and the 2016 Act, that is the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act, which is a rights-based model which is par with UNCRPD. But when it comes to ground reality or practice, huge gap can be seen. Then women with disabilities face multiple layers of discrimination in the form of gender-based discrimination, since they are women with disabilities, and disability-based discrimination. Followed by that, lack of awareness about reproductive rights among women with disabilities exists. They are not aware of their reproductive rights. Followed by that, decision making is dominated by third parties, either the families, caretakers, or the medical professionals. And informed consent, which is also guaranteed under Section 10 of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act, is frequently ignored or compromised, as it happened in the case that I just mentioned in Sucheta Srivastava versus in Chandigarh administration. Here too, a girl was found out to be pregnant in one of the shelter homes in Chandigarh, and when abortion was about to be carried out for her, after the 20 weeks had lapsed, they had tried to abort it without informing her. That is, her consent was compromised, though she wanted to keep the baby, because the Punjab and Haryana High Court felt that she is incapable or incapacitated to become a mother. However, Advocate Sucheta Srivastava, who is a human rights lawyer, who is a Delhi-based human rights lawyer, took up the case and argued that in such cases, it is the state who has to become the guardian of the women with disability by applying the principle of parens patriae. Parens patriae means if a person doesn't have a guardian, in that case, state must take over the role of the guardian. And consent has to be communicated. She did so by referring to various foreign judgments. And in this case, the pregnancy was allowed and the woman was allowed to keep the baby. Followed by that, healthcare systems are not fully accessible or inclusive. So as I had mentioned in my previous slide, inequity is seen in every healthcare system, every hospital. It is not accessible and it is not inclusive for women with disabilities. So this is one of the main reasons why many women have to make a decision to not continue with the pregnancy. Followed by that, social stigma. It limits the expression of sexuality and reproductive choices. So the social stigma or the mindset of the people that place women with disabilities under two categories, that is either as asexual or hypersexual. So this limits the expression of their sexuality and reproductive choices. Followed by that, there is legal protection, but inadequately it is enforced. Legal protection is there, we have various laws, but there is a huge lacuna when it comes to it being enforced or implemented. Finally, there is a need for empowerment through education and training. That is, women with disabilities, their caregivers, as well as the medical staff need to be empowered through education as well as various trainings, where lawyers collaborating with NGOs must go and sensitize them. And also, pamphlets must be distributed of the sensitization program in a tailor-made manner so that it is accessible to women with disabilities, depending on their type of disability. So all these efforts need to be taken. So this is forming part of my findings. Now coming to recommendations. So right-based inclusivity policy has to be adopted. Policy work has to be adopted for reproductive rights of women with disabilities. It should be right-based. Followed by that, strict enforcement of law should be done to protect reproductive rights of women with disabilities, which includes legal capacity guaranteed under Section 13, subsection 2 of the RPWD Act, or the right to make their own reproductive choices. Followed by that, policies must be provided on accessible and inclusive healthcare services, which is lacking when it comes to women with disabilities. Then awareness should be promoted on sexual and reproductive health of women with disabilities and disability-specific legislations, including the 2016 Act. Then mandatory training should be done for medical professionals on disability-sensitive care, because many medical professionals, unfortunately, are not sensitive towards women with disabilities, where women patients who are pregnant, they are constantly judged, especially by the obstetricians or the gynecologist. So mandatory training should be given to medical professionals to be sensitive towards the care of women with disabilities. Then the concept of informed consent guaranteed under Section 10 of the RPWD Act must be strengthened when it comes to medical procedures, including medical termination of pregnancy. Followed by that, social stigma should be reduced through education and advocacy. That is, sensitizing women with disabilities, their families or caregivers, as well as various health professionals. Followed by that, policies must be developed ensuring autonomy or independence in reproductive decision making, that is to make decisions with respect to their reproductive choices. And finally, judicial activism must be encouraged to safeguard their rights. That is, they should also be given talks on the judicial activism. That is, their legal rights should be explained to them, and also for women who are coming from the underprivileged groups, they should be made aware that we have the policy of, or we have the provision of legal aid, where they can go and they can approach, they can exercise their rights through the legal aid by enforcing them before the various state high courts or the Supreme Court. So that's how I come to an end to my presentation, end of my presentation.
Yeah. Thank you, Aksharaji. Very, very exhaustive and comprehensive presentation.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. So first, I think you need to give an example of hypersexual, because that is what generally it is not associated. Means most of the literature in Indian context has not mentioned that women with disability are hypersexual. So I think you'll have to provide some facts about that, no? Yeah.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah. Then other thing is that women with intellectual disabilities are also forcibly hysterectomized, and about which there was a big controversy also in
Yes, ma'am.
Pune, in the shelter home, in the home for the women with disabilities. So many of them were hysterectomized, and a big scandal had come out. There was a public interest litigation filed by the Medical Friends Circle and the health activist. So I think you can dwell on this issue also of hysterectomy, because even the medical fraternity is divided on it. Because the arguments, I think I've written in the chat box, that either in the name of caregivers, this thing, being sensitive to caregivers, or also sometimes that the family members, it is in the best interest of the person with women with disability as well as the caregiver's convenience. These are the arguments always put forward for the forcible hysterectomy. That is there.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. And the reproductive rights of queer community, especially intersex person and trans person, I think you need to include because that is a totally neglected area.
The queer
Trans
community,
women,
ma'am.
trans women, trans women and intersex, because there also decisions are taken. But see, as per the new act, the decisions will be taken by the magistrate or a doctor. And even at the time of birth, when intersex baby is born, it is the parents and doctors who decide. And later on, they face so many, mainly identity crisis, then the lot of problems which they face in their life in negotiating their job, negotiating their studies and everything. So, and also the mental stress and mental, what you call tension, which the person goes through, no?
Yes, ma'am.
And there is a lot of literature available, especially if you go through even IMPRI's event outcome report, where so many of them have made presentation, at least for past 4 years, every June, IMPRI organizes a series on beyond gender binaries, no? Where so many
Yes, ma'am.
presentations have been made. So there is a lot of literature. So these two things you need to take up. Otherwise it would be incomplete
Okay,
because
ma'am.
yeah, reproductive rights of intersex person and trans person, no, because they are directly linked to the biology. Because
Ma'am, I
yeah,
just had a doubt regarding that. Like, since you asked me to include reproductive rights of the queer community, that is
not
the
career
transgender
community,
women,
trans women, with specific
trans women.
trans women who menstruate, who can also become pregnant, and medical fraternity is totally unaware and they can't see things beyond binary, no.
Yes, ma'am, but then
Yeah.
they are not included as PWDs, persons with disabilities. So how will it be relevant? I just wanted to ask, ma'am, like its relevance. Could you
Huh?
please elaborate on that?
Yeah, so those who are persons with disability, even among them, there are disabled people, no?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Intersex and this. So you can, when you talk about your perspective, you say that it's not only about men and women. I'm talking about the trans women as well as intersex persons' reproductive rights.
Yes, ma'am. Got it, ma'am. Got it.
They should not be excluded. In fact, so there is more disability among them because of the neglect by the family, living a very dangerous street life, and also many time because of the violence. Also, there is disability, no, because they are forced into sex work and
True, ma'am.
so that is this thing. Another thing that this whole thing about the shall and must, because so many times court has used this shall to bend the rule, no?
Yes,
Because
ma'am.
they say that they think that there is a way to avoid enforcement of law, no, in certain cases, because it says shall. Shall can be interpreted as maybe or no. So that
It
also
does happen, ma'am.
mentioned. Yeah, it does happen. So that is there. And in your review of literature, you have taken into consideration literature from India.
Yes, ma'am. I did refer to articles written by Indian scholars as well.
Yeah, because it should not look, because generally they say that disability studies is only based on the Western models and Western industrialized society. So that should not be the case because
And
lot
ma'am, with
written
right,
here
ma'am.
also. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
And this health inequity जो मैंने highlight किया था in my previous
Yeah.
PPT,
Yeah.
that I also happened to observe, like when we go to the hospitals for
Correct.
regular checkups. So
Yeah.
there I noticed that it was not disability friendly because I happened to pass by a gynae department
Yeah.
where women were waiting for their respective appointments.
Correct.
So I could see there were women with disabilities, especially physical disabilities who were pregnant.
And Professor
There was
Anita
no,
Gai has written extensively, no? Yeah.
yes, ma'am.
Even then, I know Adlakha, Professor Adlakha is also, there's a special number on gender and disability by Indian Journal of Gender Studies. So
Yes,
there,
ma'am.
they have given their personal testimony. Yeah.
So
And
there,
yeah,
there I noticed that privacy was not there. Same thing which I included in the slide.
yeah,
And the beds that are used for medical procedures, like including the sonography,
yeah,
it is not disability friendly, especially for women with physical disabilities.
yeah.
And
And so many
infantilizing,
hospitals, yeah,
yes, ma'am.
they don't have ramp or lift. No, yeah, made
Yes,
to.
ma'am.
So
Ramp
many
is not
times
there,
they are
lift isn't
carried
there.
by their friends or family members. They are carried.
Yes, ma'am. True, ma'am.
Yeah, you were saying something about intellectuals.
Yes, ma'am. That, and with intellectual disabilities, I happened to read a report. So in that, I came across this word, infantilizing them.
Yeah, yeah. Infantilizing a man, infantilize women, and women infantilize, and everybody infantilizes person who is marginalized. No? So whether
Yes, ma'am.
yeah, anybody who is economically marginalized or physically marginalized or intellectually marginalized, they get infantilized. And in case of disability, yes, it happens a great deal. In fact, person with disability, so many of them have reported, I'm treated as a piece of furniture. No? It is just there,
Yes, ma'am.
not as a human being. Nobody asks me whenever any decision in the family is taken. So many times they are even locked in, no? They are
Yes, ma'am.
invisibilized by the family members. When the guests come, they are not allowed to come out.
True, ma'am.
Yeah. We have Center for Special Education, and there is a project called Arohi. So in that also, so many such testimonies we have.
Because of that, they
Correct,
miss out a lot of opportunities.
correct. Yes, very much. Yeah. Very good study. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. So there will be primary data also, or it will be literature scanning.
Ma'am, it will be both. Primary data will be there. And also I'll be referring to secondary data in the form of articles and which is written by various scholars,
Ah,
then reports, disability reports, and the judgments given by the Supreme Court as well as various state high courts.
yeah. Okay. Yeah, very good one. Congratulations.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much,
That's
Akshara
actually.
and Nai, for your feedback.
Thank
Next,
you,
we
ma'am.
have Vandana ji.
Hmm.
Vandana ji, can you hear us?
Anji, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am.
Yeah. Good evening. Yeah.
Just a second, ma'am. I just present my slides.
Yeah.
Start share.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ma'am, are you able to see my side, I mean
No.
screen?
Screen we are seeing, but there's nothing in it.
No, I guess whiteboard
Okay.
is open.
Yeah, they're only dots.
Actually, I am having a problem in sharing my PPT, but ma'am, just give me 2 minutes.
Yeah. Otherwise, you send it to IMPRI team, they will share.
Start camera, whiteboard. Acha, share screen.
Yeah.
It is not. Ma'am, I'm genuinely sorry, but I'm not able to share my PPT just because I'm not getting it.
Can you send it to IMPRI team?
Yeah, you can share us through email.
Okay, I'm just.
Until then, we can have the presentation of
Yeah.
Rishita ji.
Yes. You have email ID?
Hello,
Yes.
Bolo.
can I go ahead?
Yes, please.
Just a second, I'll share my screen.
Yeah. Rishita.
Is my presentation visible?
Yes.
Is it full screen?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi everyone, my name is Rishita Sharma and I'll be presenting my research, The Invisible Businesses, Why Many Women Entrepreneurs in India Struggle to Scale. Images used in this presentation are AI generated and are for illustrative purposes only. Across India, millions of women are actively running businesses. They are producing, selling, and earning. But despite this participation, a very small number of these businesses actually grow. This presentation looks at that gap between presence and growth and talks about how we are going to study it. On the screen, you can see what millions of women led businesses in India actually look like. A product being sold through WhatsApp, a customer placing an order informally, and the entire transaction happening within a small and familiar network. Reports by UN Women and the International Labour Organization show that a large proportion of women led businesses operate in home based, informal, and network driven settings. So while these businesses are clearly active and functioning, their reach and therefore their ability to grow remains limited. This pattern becomes much clearer when we look at the data. According to the Ministry of MSME's annual report, India has over 63 million MSMEs, making it one of the largest drivers of employment in the country. But when we look at the ownership, a gap immediately appears. Data released by the Press Information Bureau shows that only around 20% of these businesses are owned by women. Now, here's where it becomes more important. Over 90% of the MSMEs in India are micro enterprises, meaning they operate at a very small scale with limited growth. And this trend is even more pronounced for women. Studies referred by the World Bank and International Labour Organization again suggest that over 90 to 95% of women led businesses remain informal or small scale. So, what we see is a structural gap. Women are participating, but they are not scaling. Now, if we look at existing research, we see that this issue has been studied, but only partially. Major reports by Niti Aayog, the World Bank, and International Labour Organization are very helpful and consistently focus on access to finance, skill development, participation rates, and gender gaps. There is very little focus on what actually happens after the business is already running. Growth is really the center of that conversation. Issues like how the businesses reach new customers. Are they even reaching new customers remains under study. To address this gap, this study uses a combination of primary and secondary data. On the secondary side, I draw from policy reports, articles, institutional data, and global research. On the primary side, the study involves direct interaction with women entrepreneurs running small businesses using a structured questionnaire to understand how they sell, how they use digital platforms, and the limitations they face navigating them, and what challenges they face in expanding beyond their current networks. This issue goes beyond just individual businesses. Women led enterprises represent a significant untapped economic opportunity. According to the World Bank and the UN Women, increasing women's participation and growth in entrepreneurship has direct links to higher income levels, employment generation, and inclusive economic development. But when businesses remain confined to small informal networks, their contribution to the economy stays limited. If this gap between participation and scalability is addressed, it can lead to increased financial independence, more job creation, and stronger integration into the formal economy, especially from the women's side. So the question is no longer how we get women to start businesses, but rather how do we help these businesses grow? Thank you. That was it. I'd love to hear your thoughts and questions.
Yeah, I think first I got the eagle's eye view of your essay.
Yes,
But I think the most important challenge that business women they face is forward and backward linkages, because see, all the markets are controlled by men. Plus, they have their old boys club. Plus, the women are not in their inner circle, because everything in the business happens from the context that you have, social capital that you have, your credibility in the market. So women lose out on that. So unless they come up with their own social capital through organization like Seva or Mandali, Annapurna Mahila Mandal, so that would increase their bargaining power. So various uh, strategies women have evolved to survive in the market. I think you should bring that also into focus. Some of the successful models, and how women transcended the male domination in the market, whether they are product market, labor market, or factor market. Because factor market you need, where you need the raw material, and do you get level playing field? Once your products are over, that you said that once it is over, how are they selling? No, where are the do they have market? No, so how
Yes, ma'am.
they do? And now so many women, after during pandemic also, we observed that they would like to save on the rent, no, of the place and all. So they have saved. The whole concept of cloud kitchen that has come, or the processed food which women directly sell, or accessing social media, whatever they have produced, whether bakery item or pickles or this thing, they put it on Instagram and Facebook. No, how they are harvesting uh, accessible and simple technologies. No, so those kind of thing, when you don't get the larger forces are not giving you level playing field, what kind of strategies and the incremental successes women have by this thing, or just taking the order, like you, those who make cake, no, or bakery product, advance order they take on WhatsApp, and then they supply, no, so that kind of thing. Then saving, how which are the ways they are cutting cost to survive, because their ability to invest is limited, and
Yes.
their profit margin is also very less, because they are competing with the corporates, and they're competing with the
Yes.
giant this thing. So I think those challenges which they face, no, that you should, and how have women responded, that should be there. Plus, I think variation, that those who are below poverty line or from the marginalized groups, what strategies have they evolved to survive in the whatever products they make, SHGs which are producing things and selling it in the market, and state support also is provided. For example, in Maharashtra, we have MAVI, Mahila Arthik Vikas Mahamandal, and I think all state governments have some such schemes to support the self-employed women. Plus, the central government has also come up with the Mudra loan. So I think that state-of-the-art scenario of hand-holding by the state and by the collective endeavor, that I think you should bring it to this thing. And
Okay, ma'am.
the entrepreneurs with the ability to invest more, no, they are a middle level or the upper class. Their challenges are of a very different level, but it is not that if their business collapses, they will not be on road, no, but still they have challenge. While the women from the poverty groups, if their business collapses, they will be just on the road. They will be totally helpless, no. So and that is why cautionary measures which women take. That's what all the studies show, that women don't just jump into it. No? They do a lot of market research, and they, in their own way, they do this thing, that they take all the precautions to see to it that whatever investment they have made, it gives them positive.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
So should I diversify it, like how women from underprivileged backgrounds are
Yes.
facing the same issue, and how women from privileged backgrounds are facing this?
Yeah. And plus,
Okay.
so many women have, I think they have also formed Women Entrepreneurs Association. I think in Maharashtra we have, because the way men don't allow them to enter own boys club, no.
Yeah.
So women have come up with their own, and plus they support each other. If someone is doing, say, into food business, and the other person has this thing, supply chain, then they source things from them and give it to the suppliers from affluent sections, no,
Yes.
where they get more. So this kind of a hand holding and the collective endeavor that are happening. And there are organizations like the Dastakar. What is Dastakar? Dastakar was started for the women artisans by person Puna Mutreja and all who were MBA, and they were in the corporate world. They gave up their job when they saw this kind of exploitation of women artisans who were not even getting their subsistence because of the agents were fleecing them. They were selling things in the world market at $1 and euro price, but these women did not get even the 2 square mil. And that's how the whole traveling exhibition called Dastakar started. Similarly, Tamil Nadu government started Pumpuhar, no, so which is traveling exhibition where all the producers can come together. They can get the platform without having to pay very heavy fees or rent. And they also get the national level market or the larger market, no? So
Yes.
I think those successful models also you can, you can take into consideration.
Okay.
Yeah, the strategies for business successes in the enterprise with women are.
Okay, ma'am. I'll make sure to mention that, and I'll make a dedicated questionnaire.
Yeah. In fact, today's
Having
lecture
to
was by Dr. Tara Nair was to be on that, no? That in the social enterprise, how are women entrepreneurs surviving? That she had to speak on that. That's a specialization. Yeah. So in review of
Thank you, ma'am.
literature, you can take the articles and reports by Dr. Tara Nair, who has really done exhaustive work on this issue,
Okay.
women-led businesses.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. I'll refer to that.
Yeah. All the best.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rishita ji, and thank you, ma'am, for your feedback. Vandana ji, I will be sharing your PPT.
Yeah.
Okay, ma'am. Thank
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you want to go to the next slide, please tell me to move
Which
on.
is the
Okay?
first one?
Rishita,
First one is of introduction.
Which one? Let me see.
Yes, ma'am.
Start from the beginning only. Yeah. Acha. Women's representation in legislative assembly.
Ma'am, can I
Yeah.
start?
Huh?
yes, you can start.
Ma'am, my topic is women's representation in legislative assembly. As can I use both the language, Hindi and English both?
Whatever you want to do. Yeah, we understand both.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, as we all know that women, we are all talking about on every platforms that women should get equal opportunities and equality in every sector and every platform. But still, we need equality, but with equality, we need the empowerment as well. Where in legislative assembly we are lacking it somewhere. So just because of that, I took this topic. Politics decides or shape our society, which who makes laws and whose voice is heard. Because if we get representation and we get some authority and some opportunity to speak out and to do something for our society, where women's participation like, ma'am, with equality we need the encouragement so that the women can
वो अपने फायदे के लिए और सोसाइटी के फायदे के लिए कुछ काम कर सके, अपलिफ्ट कर सके, बेनिफिट टू वुमेन. मैम, through my research and my study, I do not want to focus only on numbers. I want to study that how many or how much the government is empowering, or how much they are getting the opportunity to do better, or democracy, ma'am. Because if we are a democratic country, then if the government will get the representation and equal partnership in the decision making, then this will make women more stronger and more impactful in the politics as well as society. As we all know that the society is very patriarchal and very dominating. Ma'am, I choose this topic just because women are still underrepresented in politics. Just मैम कुछ states में तो हमें बहुत ज्यादा representation है legislative assembly में women's की, but कुछ states में बिल्कुल negligible है, which is not right. Because for ma'am, the true democratic country is equal participation, where we are lacking, where our system is lacking behind a little bit, which I think that we should work on that. The women's reservation bill makes the topic highly relevant. Ma'am, because of this women's reservation bill, this will make a lot of impact on the women's and the women empowerment. Just because stereotypes, patriarchal society, and gender inequality, and most of things will be improved from this bill. But and also my objective for this representation in legislative assembly was to examine the level of women's representation in state legislative assembly. Ma'am, I want to study about how the women are representing, and what is motivating them, and what are the policies and other things which can make them more empowered and make them actual symbolic present, from which their presence they can make some difference in the society. And to identify the challenges and barriers faced in the women's politics. What are the challenges and barriers they are facing in their politics, and what are the things they are affected by. And then, ma'am, in my last session, you told me to take some states which have the most reservation in their state, most reservation in their representation in their state legislative assembly, and the lowest reservation or representation in their society, in their legislative assembly. I took the two states who have very low representation in their society was Nagaland. Ma'am, historically, from very previous time, the Nagaland has only very little 2 or 3% of representation in their states, because they have a patriarchal society where male dominance is way more than the other states. Like, ma'am, in Article 371, a customary laws where tribal bodies do not allow the reservation or interference of women in their politics, as well as the tickets were not distributed to the women, as they do not think that they are capable of getting a seat in the legislative assembly, which they are not considering them. Then no political support. They are not getting any political support, as well as they are not getting support from the society as well. And the next was Puducherry. Puducherry also have 3 to 4% of women's MLAs, women MLA, and this is the second lowest state which has the least representation in the legislative assembly. Ma'am, the factors that affect the women's least representation was, ma'am, tickets were not given to the women's, so because the society thinks that they are incapable, as well as there is money gap, because women do not get so much funding for their campaigns and for their political for their political structure functioning, as well as, ma'am, the male dominance patriarchal society, which we can see a study from most of the states, which is uh, affecting a lot of women, and which is affecting their growth. Otherwise, other than that, ma'am, political network barriers, because the women's compared to men's have very less strong, very less connections with connections, and they are able to connect with the other parties or other people. Highest woman, and then highest women representation in India, the West Bengal has 13 to 14% women's MLA, which is the one of the highest state which have the representation in India. Because, ma'am, they have a strong support, they have a strong society mindset, as well as the women start working from the try to work from the lower level, panchayati raj or grassroots levels, which build their confidence and which build their experiences, so that they can go on the other upper system as well. And we have also seen that in the current elections also, the West Bengal, in one lady won the elections in West Bengal. After that, ma'am, visible leadership, because the women are more inspired and more women are more inspired and more confident that they can enter to the politics and makes one difference, and can do something for their society. And because of, and one more factor is that, ma'am, a lot of political awareness in women are there in the society, and as well as they are allowed to participate in elections. A lot of women participate, and a lot of encouragement was also seen from their societies. Other than that, second state I have took was Bihar. Bihar likewise have 13 to 14% women MLAs in Bihar. Other than that, ma'am, 50% of reservation was done by the Panchayati Raj system, which is a very good data I can collect it from which I can study that the women who are starting from the Panchayati Raj or grassroots levels all builds their confidence and builds their connections so good, and builds their personality so good, encourage herself, so that they can go on the upper level and do a great difference for their political parties. Ma'am, the society supports was given by them encouragement, and a lot of positive environment is there to help them. And, ma'am, what motivates women for this is, I have discussed it previous also, that Panchayati Raj system, if a woman is working from the grassroots, it will make a difference throughout the society, as well as the family support. And family support is the most important support a woman need for going in a political background, making connections. Other than that, issue-based motivation, like women enter politics to address gender violence, health, education gaps. If a woman gets representation in a society, in a politics, then, ma'am, she will do a lot of things in gender violation, health, education gap, and biologically, biologically, as in the women who face personal body wise issues in society, the like sanitations and all this the basic things which a which a male representative which a male representative leader is not able to do, the women also do those things as well. Electoral strategy, as in, ma'am, they attract voter. Women candidate used to attract women's voter. Always women usually are very good in their conversations and in their protest in their campaigns, that they can attract their voters very nicely, and they can use a very good electoral strategies for their parties, which is a very good point for them. Ma'am, my research questions are, how has women representation in state legislative assembly changed over time? I would like to study from 2004 to 2024. What will be the impact of the Women's Reservation Act 2023 on a state level representation? That what is the act is making a impact on the state level representation. Other than that, does increased representation lead to real empowerment or a symbolic participation? That, ma'am, the representation is really making the woman empower, or just a tokenism the women are getting it? Other than that, how do women's MLA influence debates, policies, and governance? What influence or what changes, what contribution they can make as an MLA. The next one is, what structural and social barriers do women face in state politics, like patriarchal society or a male dominance mindset, and most of the things that society does not allow um, the women's, that I want to study from this topic. Methodology will be, I wanted to study with mixed approach, which is quantitative and qualitative.
Yeah.
Quantitative and qualitative. Ma'am, for quantitative, I would like to study, ma'am, I would like to study from the data and the articles, the research which I've previously done. From the qualitative data, I would like to talk to the people, take interviews and experiences, and would go in the society, and by in person, I would like to collect the data. Focus on women's representation. I wanted to focus on 2004 to 2024, because this created a lot of impact in this time period. Then, ma'am, data source. I would like to collect the data from election data, from the state assembly results. What are the state assembly results was there, and like that, I would like to search for different methods, so that I can have my very not a generic result. I would like to conclude, look after most of the topic areas. And ma'am, research gap I saw in this topic was, most studies only count how ma'am, most of the studies were counted that how many women are elected, how many representation is there, do they have power or not. But I wanted to see from this, not just about the numbers, I want to see what impact they are doing, or what influence they can make by getting the representation. After that, ma'am, the reservation, I wanted to see the Reservation Act 2023 policies, budget, and decision. What changes this act? After that, ma'am, the next to my research gap is, मैम, लेजिस्लेटिव असेंबली में, स्टेट लेजिस्लेटिव असेंबली बहुत कम लोगों ने स्टडी किया है, बट पार्लियामेंट पे मोस्ट ऑफ द पीपल हैव स्टडीड. सो आई वांटेड टू डू फॉर द स्टेट लेजिस्लेटिव, and also I wanted to study that Women's Reservation Act का impact क्या है mostly. After that, ma'am, the literature review which I have read it, not in more depth, but I have read this, which was by one book, Hannah Pitkin. This, ma'am, she talked about the representation, but she says by this book that not just presence but action. She wanted to say that the influence, the impact they are making by getting the representation, not a tokenism, is not a tokenism is not a, क्या कहते हैं उसको, difference, ma'am. She gave two things in her book, that was descriptive and substantive. She wanted to she was say in इस book में मैम बेसिकली है कि women's are, मतलब कि presentation सिर्फ present होना important नहीं है. It is important that women are doing, if they are getting a ticket or they are getting something, then their influence is more important. After that, the real power matters, not just numbers. Then, ma'am, Anna Phillips talked about the presence is important. Most of the leaders have talked about this only, that representation में presence important है. The inclusion in decision making, as in, ma'am, what are the influences they are able to make? Just like, ma'am, the other two theories are same.
Vandana ji, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but I think so you will have to conclude in next 2 to 3 minutes because we have one more presentation.
Okay, I'm so sorry, ma'am.
I think you need to take more of an Indian this is the topic on which political scientists of India have written extensively. So you will have to take recent discourses, because the kind of reasons we have gone now beyond representation, beyond selection of women. Now the question is the mafia power, money power, character assassination, technology enabled. Totally different challenges are there for women to be in the political thing. Because I go for the training of women who want to contest election. The ball game has completely changed. So better you take the recent literature. And a lot is written by person like Professor Mohanty or Ranjana Kumari or this thing, Paul Science. I think Manisha Madhava has written.
Okay, ma'am.
Or Mathur, I think Professor Mathur from Jain University. These are the recent ground level scenario of India, and how are they? Because now these women are preparing for 2029 election, no?
Okay,
So
ma'am.
what you are talking is very, very old, 40, 50 years back, what that was the scenario. After that, we had 1994 itself, we had 33% reservation. Now, after that, we have 6 rounds of Panchayati Raj elections. And women have now faced a ground level reality at a much, much complex level. How do you explain defeat of Mamtaji in West Bengal? Okay. So the question of governance issue, or the question of mafia power, question of money power, question of character assassination, the disrobing of all these women candidates in UP that happened, that created so much of fear among women candidates, that even if you are competent, you have a lung power, you have a tongue power, you have a qualification, you have a commitment to nurture your constituency, but still sheer misogyny and the hyper masculinity which you are confronted with, how are you going to face them? Very, very different challenges are there, Mamtaji. You'll have to make it more relevant and contemporary.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, actually, I didn't get time because I was not well, so I just made it in 2 days.
Yeah,
So
no, you just if you go to JSTOR also, you will get very, very important contemporary. I just focus on the articles written after the year 2000. In last 26 years, so much has come out. And especially women who have succeeded in the from 1994, every 5 years, we have a Panchayati Raj elections. Those women who have won the election 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, they have tried their best to get ticket of their party from for legislative assembly, and they have been denied. They said, where is money? That's what the party bosses are asking. Women who have given 30, 40 years of their life, they have been they denied tickets, and that's why you saw in Kerala, so many of them contested as an independent because their party refused to give them election. And the whole story behind defeat of communists in Kerala, no, and the Congress has come to power. So the dynamics are very different, and especially the muscle power, mafia power, money power, and misogyny. That just because you're a woman, they are using such a dirty, filthy language to character assassinate, to come the kind of posters which were there. We had a campaign, we collected thousands of signatures for the kind of dirty pornographic images of Chief Minister of West Bengal that were used in the current election just 3 days back. So these are the very, very difficult challenges which women are facing. You better go through the literature. A lot is there even in the blogs, no, even on social media, even on the internet. You just click about women in electoral politics and you will get all these articles. Even the opinion pages of Tribune, Hindustan Times, Times of India, Indian Express, all of them have had a major feature by the political analyst and sociologist and political scientist, no?
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah.
Ma'am, I'm genuinely sorry on my behalf, but I'll work on this and then I'll ask you my doubts if you'll be able to help me.
Yeah. That's what I said, that now you do your homework and
Yes, ma'am.
yeah, come up with
Ma'am, thank you so much for your valuable advice. I'm really obliged. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Yeah, you'll be able to manage. Don't worry. That's not a problem. There's plenty of.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vandana ji, and thank you, ma'am, for your feedback. Last presentation for today, we have by Ankita ji. She has shared her recorded presentation. So I may request the team to kindly play her recording.
Yeah. But how will she get her feedback? Acha, you will share the YouTube with her?
Yeah, ma'am. She can watch the live session.
Okay. Yeah. Fine. What is by whom this presentation is?
Ma'am, it's by Ankita ji.
Ankita ji.
I am Ankita Ganguly, and today I will be presenting my research on bridging the implementation gap, women's empowerment policies. This study takes an intersectional comparative global perspective to understand why policies that are well designed often fail to produce meaningful empowerment outcomes on the ground. To begin with, there is a persistent gap between policy intent and actual outcomes in women empowerment. While policies focus on improving access to education, finance, healthcare, and participation, they often fail to translate into real empowerment, such as decision-making power and agencies. The gap is largely caused by weak administrative system, lack of local adaptation, deep-rooted socio-cultural barriers. So the issue is not the absence of policy, but the failure of implementation. This brings us to the core problem of the study. The central question is, why do well-designed policies fail to produce meaningful empowerment outcomes? Overall, the goal is to understand why outcomes vary and how implementation can be improved. This study adopts a qualitative research approach. It is based on secondary data such as policy reports and research papers, case studies from 5 countries: India, Bangladesh, Rwanda, Philippines, and Afghanistan. The analysis used is a comparative study case study method, an intersectional lens considering gender along with class, culture, and institution. Most importantly, it applies a triple lens framework: policy design, policy delivery, and social acceptance. This framework helps explain where and why implementation failed. This study is guided by 3 questions. First, why is there a gap between policy design and outcome? Why do similar policies produce different results across contexts? How do institutional capacity and socio-cultural norms influence effectiveness? These are the research findings: policy design, context mismatch, weak implementation and delivery system, which also include limited administration capacity, socio-cultural barriers that includes patriarchal norms and social structure restrict women agency despite access. And these research findings are available across all the countries that are used in the research. So the research questions here is why there is a gap between policy design, the policy production, different result outcomes, and socio-cultural influence effectiveness. So the hypothesis used here are policies are less effective when design does not match local context. Of course, the local context is different in Afghanistan and India. Strong delivery system improve outcomes. Socio-cultural norms limit women's agencies despite access. Intersectional and participatory policies are more effective. These hypotheses are tested through cross-country comparison. Whereas the key findings reveal three major issues. First, policy design often ignores local realities, leading to mismatch. Second, weak implementation system reduce effectiveness. Third, patriarchal socio-cultural norms continue to restrict women agencies. In short, access does not automatically translate into empowerment. The comparative study. One key insight for the comparative analysis is that policy success depends on alignment. Bangladesh performed better due to strong grassroots delivery. Rwanda shows strong political inclusion but weaker social transformation. India shows variation due to uneven state capacity. So the same policy can produce very different outcomes depending on the context. So before the recommendation, here is the literature review. The literature highlights key theoretical insight. First, Naila Kabir from the 1999 defines empowerment as a combination of resource, agency, and achievement, emphasizing that access alone is not enough. Second, Esther Duflo, 2012, argues that economic development does not automatically lead to women's empowerment due to structural barrier. For a global perspective, the UNDP focuses on gender equality through measurable indicators. The World Bank tracks legal and economic participation. However, most global frameworks rely heavily on quantitative indicators, often missing lived realities and agencies. The conclusion. To conclude, there is a clear gap between policy intent and outcome. Empowerment is not just about access, but about agency and control. Design, delivery, socio-cultural context. Ultimately, real empowerment requires long-term social and institutional change. Thank you for listening. I look forward to your question and feedback.
Yeah. India adopted women empowerment policy in the year 2001, which was also declared as a women empowerment year. And all political parties unanimously supported the policy. So, and this policy had a life cycle approach from womb to tomb. So every aspect and every stage of woman's life was covered in that. And I think you should mention that and also review that what all has happened in last 25 years, because the policy has been in place. There was a revision of the policy in the year 2017 or 14 also, but there were roundtable discussions took place, but it remained draft only. It could not become policy. Moreover, at a subnational level also, we have had so many state governments have a state level policy. Maharashtra was the first one to have policy in the year 1994, which was periodically it is revised. So we had a 1997, 2014, and 2023, several such revisions have taken place, and several state governments have it. So I think you should also, because you are only talking in terms of generalizations, you need to provide example that what is the gap between policy and praxis, so at an implementation level. So I think whether it is a policy of gender responsive budgeting, or the health policy, reproductive health policy, or education policy, where in Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, all the flagship programs, it is mandatory to have minimum 30% beneficiary as women and girls, no, the stakeholders, or a policy of women in Panchayati Raj institutions in governance. So I think you should give concrete examples of the policies, its implementation, the bottlenecks and the hurdles which are faced, and the gap. How can the gap be bridged through actions of state and non-state actors? For the civil society, the role of the community, civil society organizations, NGOs, women's rights organization, human rights organization, and how the states top-down policies. So many policies we have which have come from the state, and they are vertically implemented. Okay, it comes from the top, and then by the time it reaches, it gets diluted. So I think this kind of examples will be very important, because you have taken these 5 states. So very important choice of the states which have very long history of women empowerment policy, at least of last 30, 40 years, they have had these policies, but you should give examples. That's very important. Otherwise, it will remain only abstractions and generalizations. But it's a good work, because your canvas is too huge. And it's very bold attempt that you have made by choosing this cross-cultural, cross-country analysis of women empowerment policy. So with this, I think we have had a very rewarding sessions, both the previous one and today. I think we have had a very, very rewarding session, and I'm so happy that the resource persons' hard work and their preparation and their sessions with you resulted in such an optimistic outcome. And I congratulate all of you.
Thank you, ma'am. And also, I would like to thank everyone for presenting their work today. And it was truly an enriching experience listening to you all. And we really look forward to seeing your draft research essays. And a special note of gratitude to our chair, Professor Vibhuti ma'am, for her constant support, encouragement, and guidance. And with this, I would like to invite ma'am to deliver the closing remarks for the day. Over to you, ma'am.
Yeah. So I think this is the overall response to the whole course. I think we began very in a very positive scenario, where the presentations, all our resource persons, they put in a lot of work in terms of research, in terms of articulation. And we started with Dr. Linda Lane, who gave us a very global scenario of women's leadership. And she so many different models of women's leadership we have talked about. And we realized that women's full and effective participation in leadership roles, whether it is in industry or politics or governance or trade or community development, all of them, they enhancing their agency in decision making in economic and public life, particularly in the field of the vital needs of women in terms of health, education, skill building, and economic participation. I think there are very important areas in which women have invested, the women leaders have invested their energy, and most important areas of increasing scope for women, the opportunities in creating enabling environment, level playing field, investing in the women's resource, like in investing in their skill, confidence building, and also a lot of hand holding in negotiating the complexities of the 21st century global leadership. I think this and support for the individual empowerment or the organizational change, creating the changes in systems and structures which has a strong gender bias and patriarchal bias, and the overall societal impact to enable the pathways for women's leadership, their role as a and mandated power to influence the change and transformative change, which are very important, because otherwise we are getting incremental successes we are getting at a localized level. But making a global influence for that, I think much more efforts are required by both the community, the families, and by the state. And it means that investing in women in terms of their the training and education, and identifying and addressing long-standing barriers that we have. We have had a 5,000 years of patriarchal value system. So how to negotiate women's space and women's empowerment within that. Uh, Identifying the gaps in the research. There are so many areas of women's leadership where there is hardly any insights or robust research available, because they are very important, because all these researches and the evidences that you create, they feed into the policy making, and which also creates also progressive legislations which are equitable. I think many of you talked about that. Okay, we have a constitutional equality, but what about the equity? So I think for that it's very important. And whether you are Swati Aroraji's work on feminization of aging, or Shaila Balaji's work on policy gaps in Indian creative economy, or the whole controversy around menstrual leave, about which the Ms. Mithu is writing essay. I think they have raised this question. Isha Agarwal's work on three workforce identities, how the attitudes are changing. This generational analysis is very important, because that also gives us a understanding of how the change takes place, and by the collective effort from, say, Gen X to Gen Z. She's talking about Dr. Randa Soni's work on enhancing gender-responsive urban mobility through first mile and last mile connectivity problem in Gurugram, because all the studies have shown that not having the safe mobility is the major reason for Indian women at every level, whether unless there is a total helplessness to work, women would not enter into the gainful work, mainly because there is no safety. So safety has emerged as a very important concern. And for that, the safe mobility is a very important issue, which is being discussed in most of the developing countries, whether you are in Africa or Latino countries or in Asian countries. The mobility from workplace, from home to workplace and back is very important. It also contributes to educational advancement also, because in African countries we saw that because of unsafe way of children reaching their school, so many girls had to drop out. The teenage pregnancy becomes a major problem. So safe mobility for women's education, for the health needs. So many times girls and women's health gets neglected, because there is the hospitals or the community health centers, they are away, and there is no mobility from reaching from home to that place. I have seen in the gender responsive budgeting, when at the panchayat level, where man would ask for a pakka road from village to the mall or to the cinema hall, while the women would say no, they want pakka road which would connect the village to the school, so that girls can go to the school, children can don't drop out after primary education. Or they also ask for the connectivity of the road to the primary health center and the civil hospital. So for every existential need of women and girls, and even from the marginalized section, connectivity and mobility are so important. Akshara Nair's work on sexual and reproductive rights for women with disabilities is such an important, mind-boggling issue, which women champions of the disability rights, they have also focused time and again, and right from the representation in the UN to the government of India's various bodies, they have raised this issue. It has also become a very important concern for research of the Center for Special Educations that we have to cater to the persons with disability. And Ms. Rishita Sharma's work on women-led businesses in India, that is also a major challenge. We all know that like today's Times of India shows that only 20% of women are into business. And this business means it is not that there is some great businesses which they are owning or controlling, but it is basically you don't get any job and you don't get any other work, gainful work, than as a sheer helplessness, whatever you know, whether it's embroidery or making food or starting a tea stall, that also is covered as a business. And women are, most of the banks, whether they are cooperative banks or the nationalized banks, they don't think, the managers or the authorities of the financial institutions, they don't consider women as a credit worthy. So the question of getting loans, forward and backward linkages, getting appropriate market, not getting cheated by the agents, these are the challenges which they are facing. And they are also finding a way out, collective way out, they are finding out. And they are also, government has also come up with so many supportive measures for the women in the businesses. But at the same time, what we need are all the flagship programs of the government, whether they are Startup India, Stand Up India, Make in India, Mudra loans, everywhere. I think the women's needs, they need to be considered to be the most important. They have to be prioritized and they have to come center stage. Vanna Bansibal's work on women's representation in Legislative Assembly is a very important issue being discussed both by the women's movement and the political parties currently, because we recently had a debate about the delimitation, which has also brought in a lot of important parameters for discussion. That you take one step forward and then you, however, two step backward. And the kind of political polarization that took place around Women's Reservation Act 2023, which will be implemented in 2029. That has been the promise. Let us see whether that promise also becomes a practice. Coming years will show us. And the last one, Ankita Ganguly's work on bridging the implementation gap in women empowerment policy, is a global concern. Every country is coming up with so many policies which would just remain as a tokenism. What we don't want is tokenism. What we want is actual implementation and transformative change. And I think that's why we also envisage with the whole mission of this course of women's leadership in a globalized world was also with that we should be the conscience keeper. All the fellows, you are the ones who are going to be the conscience keeper for the women's leadership, women's representation, women's voice, women's agency, and women's power, collective power. Because individually, if you become a superstar, you don't get much. It is the accountability and your social responsibility that is very important when it comes to empowerment of women, womankind, and also the social justice, gender justice, environmental justice, and also distributive justice that we all adhere to. Thank you very much. Over to Sana.
Thank you so much, ma'am. With this, I would like to proceed to form a vote of thanks as we conclude the day 8 of the Young Women Leaders in Public Policy Fellowship, Cohort 4. Theme: Women Leadership in the Globalized World. I, Sana Ansari, on behalf of IMPRI Gender Impact Studies Center, extend my heartfelt gratitude. We sincerely thank our chair, Professor Vibhuti Patel ji, for her invaluable contribution and for engaging us in such a powerful discussion. We are grateful to all our experts who have shared their invaluable insights with us throughout this fellowship. We thank all our participants who have raised important questions and presented their work today and actively participated throughout this fellowship. This session reading and resources will be shared via email. A video recording of today's session will be available for your reference. We look forward to seeing you at our upcoming events and discussions, such as Beyond Binary Cohort 4, starting this June. If you are following our work by watching it on YouTube, listening via podcast, or reading a publication, we truly appreciate your engagement and support. Once again, thank you all being part of this initiative. Wishing you a great evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sana, for moderating the session. And thank you, Priyanka ji, for your hard work and bringing all of us together on the same platform and same page.
Thank you, ma'am. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. All the best for your essays. Fellows.
Thank you, ma'am.